Hey folks, welcome back to another Dice Tower preview. I'm Mark, and today we're taking a look at Knee Deep in Hexes, which is brought to you by Till 5 Games. It's for 2 players, ages 14 and up, and games generally run about 45 to 60 minutes. Knee Deep in Hexes is a tactical war game. As the leader of a heavily armed mercenary corporation, you have been ordered to take control of a remote, resource-rich desert planet. The use of force has been authorized, and your task is to analyze the battlefield and maneuver your troops into strategic positions. You will have to adapt to your opponent's plans and find out the best way to counter their moves. The goal of the game is a simple one: destruction. The game ends immediately when a player's HQ is destroyed or the scrapyard is completely filled with vehicles and structures. So, do you have what it takes to gain control of this desert planet? Let's find out. So yes, this is a head-to-head battle, and you'll have to manage your resources wisely along with your cards as you put them into play. Now, you have all these units on the battlefield. You're going to try to gather the resources from the battlefield and come out on top and be the winner. Now, again, there's 2 different ways to win the game: by defeating and destroying your opponent's headquarters, or when the scrapyard becomes full. That's another way the game will come to an end. So the thing here is that if you've played video games, some of my old favorites like Command & Conquer, StarCraft, Warcraft, this is going to be very similar to those real-time strategy kind of war games where you're building up your resources, you're building up your units and putting them into play and going after your opponent. It really has that feel. They've done a great job conveying that same kind of idea to the tabletop. Now, before we dive in and take a look at this board, I have to show off these trays because they're so cool. I love the quick and easy setup. You just pull it out of the box, your units are ready to go, and it collapses down. Such a great idea. And I love board game organizers and such, so this is just fantastic for me. I think it's awesome. So I have to show that off for sure. Now, the main board, at the bottom you'll be tracking your resources. You have material and you have energy. Out on the main board, you'll see that you have those same symbols, material and energy, that you'll be using extractor to pull those from. And then we have impassable areas that are mountains. Also, those different resource areas on the board are going to be impassable as well. And if you build a structure, those are another impassable area. So there's lots of obstacles you're going to have to maneuver around the battlefield. Now you have your 2 HQs, one on either side of the board, obviously, and you have your war zone markers that go there. Those are going to be used when you engage and you set up an area that you want to battle in. Then finally, at the top of the board is the scrapyard. Again, this is another way for the game to come to an end when the scrapyard fills up to 11. All right, so let's take a look at these units. Now, you're going to need material in order to build these units and energy in general to move them across the battlefield. So first we have the ACVs. These are your quick moving vehicles. They're not real strong, but they can build other units. So super powerful to have these in play. And if they're destroyed and put into the scrapyard, you're not getting them back. So keep that in mind. So they are quick moving, like I said, but you'll have to spend 1 material to build one of those. If you spend energy, they can move up to 3 spaces, but their strength is only 1 and their health is only 1. So they can be removed from the game pretty easily. Next up is your tanks. This is kind of your medium combat ability. You're going to be building these for 2 material, and when you spend energy, they can move up to 2 spaces. And also their strength, their combat strength is 2 and their health is 2. So it all kind of coincides with the kind of their medium weight. And then you have the Paloozas, your big tank, so to say. And it's going to cost you 3 material in order to build this. And when you spend an energy to move, it only moves 1 space. So it's very expensive to move because it is big and heavy. But it does bring quite the power. Its combat strength is 3 and its health is 3. So this is definitely something that you're going to be using quite frequently to change the tide of battle. And your last 3 units are going to be structures. Now you do have a defensive unit, which is this turret, which I love. It's only going to cost you 1 material to build it, but it does have a defense of 2 as well as a combat strength of 2. So those are crucial to have. Definitely put them in key places to protect your other structures, perhaps, like your extractor. The extractor is going to be put into play next to resources, so you can add them to your resource pools at the bottom of the board, and you'll be tracking those along the side so you know where to place it on every turn. And then you have factories for building vehicles. Now both of these structures are going to cost you only 1 material, and they both have 2 health because they're fairly large in size. So again, having turrets in place perhaps to protect those or units around them definitely is a key thing, because they can be damaged and removed from the game, especially for your resources. You will start to lose resources if you lose these extractors, so keep that in mind. And it is that kind of idea, right? Is that you're trying to build up your forces and get the maximum resources so you can engage with the enemy. And of course, there's cards that you're going to be using throughout the game, and there's really 3 different types. You've got action cards, you've got war cards, and you've got your companions. So at the start of the game, you're going to pick 2 companions to add to your hand, along with their corresponding cards. Now, that gives some nice asymmetric abilities to each side, and you have some really unique cards in each of those companions to use throughout the course of the game. But the companions themselves are going to show what the starting resources you have are, as well as add to the health of your HQ. And they have different abilities too, like adding more health to a factory, or perhaps giving your tank an extra move. So you need to keep an eye on their special abilities, and don't forget to use them through the course of the game. Now, the other 2 types of cards, again, you have war cards and action cards. War cards, when you put those into play, you only get to play 1 when you engage in battle, and they're going to add to your overall strength in battle, which is really nice. And your custom cards to your companion will have some descriptive text at the bottom that may do additional things. Also, for your generic cards, when you put those war cards into play, they may have a configuration that you have to have tanks in a certain configuration to use that card. And then your action cards are going to potentially use resources like material to put those into play. And all kinds of different things here. Those custom cards do some really neat things like jamming and removing your opponent's war marker out on the board, or you might be able to just invoke a Palooza and put it anywhere in the battlefield. So these cards are really crucial to what they do. Again, you have a set of generic that both sides will have, but then really where the power comes into play is with your custom cards that come with your companions. So gameplay here is very straightforward and quick, and I love that. And there's really 3 main phases. First, you have the power-up phase, then you can do your action phase, and then exhaust phase. So power-up phase is just like it sounds. You will have exhausted all your different resources in the previous round, and you have markers of what your maximum is, and you'll move your markers back up to that, and those are going to begin calculated by the different types of extractors you have in play, as well as your companions, how much of those resources you have. And then you're going to be drawing a card, and that's all you're doing in that first phase, and then we're doing actions. So there are really 6 main actions you're going to be tapping into, like deploying vehicles around your HQ, factories. Again, they can't be in impassable areas. Moving them, using energy to move them. Of course, when you deploy them, it's going to cost you material as well. And you're going to be building structures. Maybe you have 2 ACVs out here next to this energy. You build an extractor, and suddenly you have 3 more energy that you're going to be acquiring every turn, which is awesome. And you have the ability to play your action cards. Again, may cost you material to do so. And you can draw cards. And when you draw a card, you have to spend a material to do so. Or you can recycle a card. Which is nice about this is you get rid of some dead weight perhaps in your hand. You discard a card, you spend 1 energy, and then you also get to draw a card. So it is a great way to move through your deck. But be careful, because your deck is limited. So you don't want to get rid of some of those cards that you might need later in the game for sure. But you do have a hand limit of 6. So some interesting choices to be made for sure on your turn. Or maybe you've chosen to declare a war zone. You put out your marker. It actually covers 3 different zones. Each of those zones has 7 hexes. So that's where the battle is going to take place. Now, there's obviously all kinds of things that could happen here, like that jamming card that we talked about earlier. Or your opponent could just move out, retreat, so to say, and prepare for battle for another day. But when you do battle, each side is going to pick one of their war cards to play, revealing those cards, and then you're just going to add up your total strength for each side. Whoever has the most wins, and however much they won by will determine how much damage you do to your opponent, removing units from the battlefield. So it's really that simple. I really like how that works and how quickly it plays. Again, really fast playing as you engage in battle against your opponent. And the last phase is just the exhaust phase, where any resources you didn't use, you'll move your markers to the bottom of your board. And then if you have more than 6 cards in hand, you have to discard something. So keep that in mind. And that's really the basics of what you're doing in every round of the game. And again, it comes down to, can you destroy your opponent's HQ? Really, that's the fun, trying to maneuver and do that. Or did you fill up the scrapyard? And whoever in general has destroyed the HQ, which is the way I prefer to win the game, is the winner. All right, folks, just a reminder once again, this has been a Dice Tower paid preview, and everything you've seen has been in prototype form, so keep a close eye on the campaign for any changes that still may occur. Now, with that said, it really does put me in mind of some of those games that I loved. Command & Conquer, StarCraft, it really does play like that. And it plays so quick and it's very streamlined. I like that aspect a lot. Presentation style is amazing, even in this prototype. And of course, the asymmetric abilities between the players and being able to mix and match your two companions. Some really interesting twists that can happen and different abilities to take and use. So it could really change up how you play each time. And it does become this strategic battle back and forth, which I really enjoyed. But folks, ultimately, if it looks like something of interest to you, I'm sure they'd appreciate your support. So I think that's it from me, and until next time, we'll see you at the table.